Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode. Well, software engineering is changing, and I don't really mean that in the hype way, the way that we have been hearing everywhere else. I mean the way that we have been thinking about software engineering is now changing. For years, we have been trained to think in terms of syntax, boilerplate, and implementation details. And now, with tools like Claude Code, the question is shifting from how do I write this to what exactly I'm trying to build and how, and more importantly, how do I communicate this to the AI agent. This is fundamentally a different skill set, and very honestly, I believe this is a harder one. So in this very video, we are going to build a web API solution, a .NET web API solution inside VS Code. But the real goal here isn't building the APIs. The real goal here is to show you how to think when you are working with an AI agent on a real project. We'll go through installing and setting up the Claude Code, running and testing the app, creating project memory so the AI always has the right context, writing prompts that work, not just prompts that sound right, using plan mode before making any significant changes, managing context so things don't go off the rails, and keep an eye on your cost and usages. Now, a very fair warning, this video here alone will not be the full story of Claude Code. There is a lot more depth to this tool, and mostly we'll cover it in the future video. But this video here will give you a solid engineering foundation to start working with Claude Code on real .NET projects the right way. And that is because the developers who will get the most out of these tools aren't the ones who prompt the fastest. They are the ones who think the clearest. With that said, with this context set, let's get started. All right, so the first thing that we are going to do today is installing Claude Code on our machines. All right, so for that, you will have to head over to this link, claude.com/pricing. And from here, you will have to choose one of these three options. You can either go for a free, pro, or a max plan. Now, free is okay for trial purposes, but as in when you start really using it to build some real world applications, you will start hitting the limits. All right. So I would highly suggest that you take this pro plan for $17 and it will be worth every penny. So I highly suggest that you opt for a pro plan of $17. I have chosen this, and as and when you start building it, start using it more and more, you will start feeling the difference and find it really useful. Is it like investing in yourself? So I highly suggest this. Okay. Or if you have some more money, you can either go for a max plan. But these are the individual plans. You can also opt for this API plan. And with this, you will get an API key and you can use that in your code and you will start hitting, and then you will start using the pay as you go model. But over here, you will really have to be very careful. Otherwise, you might incur some high cost. Down this video, we'll also talk about some of the ways where we could actually reduce the pricing, reduce the cost that we incur for it. Sorry, not the pricing, but we can reduce the cost that we incur for it. Now, with that said, once you have taken your plan, head over to this code.claude.com/talks, and over here we'll see a few commands using which we can actually install Claude Code on our machine. So if you are on a Mac, Linux, or a WS machine, you could use this command. If otherwise you are on a Windows machine and you love PowerShell, you could copy this command, or if you love CMD, you could copy this command over here. All right. So let's copy this command over here and let's open CMD and let's hit paste. Now, all right, now this is installed, but pay close attention to the output of that. Now, there might be a possibility, or there could be a possibility that the path will not be set for your Claude. So it will prompt you that you will have to set the path also for that. Now, whatever, just read through the output, whatever it says, just do that. If you are on Windows, mostly it will be setting up an environment variable in your system properties. And if you are on code, or if you are on Mac, it will give you the command right away and you can just fire that on the terminal and you will be good to go. So now that Claude is installed on our machine, let's create a new folder and let's just call it workspace, and let's cd into that workspace now. And now we could run Claude from this terminal. But Claude provides a better integration with VS Code. If I'm going to open VS Code now and we'll try to put in or include Claude Code over there. This editor of VS Code is now pointing to my workspace folder that I just created over there. So now we don't really need this chat window over here. I can also get rid of the Explorer, and let's just open a new terminal, and I'm going to put this side by side, and I'm going to put this to my left so that half of my screen real estate is given to Claude Code, and on the other half I can see the code. All right, now over here I'm going to say Claude, and this is what it gives us. So it says you are using this model using the Claude Pro version, and this is the email ID that you are using. Before we actually start further, there are a few important commands that Claude is giving us. The very first one is the question mark. So you can just type a question mark and look at all the shortcuts that you. So the very first thing is for the bash mode. Now there will be times where you would want to run a bash command, and a bash command you won't be able to run inside this Claude Code terminal. So for that case, you will be pressing this exclamation mark, and you will be simultaneously at the very same instance, you will be put into the bash mode or the bash terminal. And then when you are done, you could just escape from it. The other one is the forward slash. Now you could choose a few models if you want. Now, as of now, I'm using the Opus 4.6, but if you want, you can use Haiku. I would stick to Opus because it is the most capable for complex work and coding. So I'm going to stick to this. But if you want, you could change it. And whenever you are done, just hit escape and you will be out of it. The next command is terminal setup. Now, this is a very fairly important command. And if you select this, well, by the way, you don't really have to type all of it. You can just hit tab to select it and just hit enter. And you would see that it will now be using the shift and enter key binding to give you that multi lines. So now I could write line 1, line 2, and every time I want to change a line, I'm going to hit shift and enter. And this way I could write a multi-line prompt to it. All right. So now next we are going to create a new project using Claude Code. All right. So next let's try to create a new ASP.NET Core Web API project, and let's see the prompt that we could give it so that it could do this. So I'm going to say create a new .NET Web API project using .NET SDK 10. This is a to-do app with some status and priority. Okay, now this is not a very detailed prompt, but I think it should give us the bare bones for this video, for this web API project, so that we could explore the major parts of Claude. Let's hit enter and let's see what it comes up with. Now over here, it was trying to run this command on the bash. So if you look at this command over here, this is a bash command. So this ran on the bash terminal, and then it is asking us if now it actually wants to run this command. So it is asking if you want to proceed, and now there are a set of three options. I could just say yes, or I could say yes and also tell it for a similar command in future you don't have to ask me. Then if that is the option in my mind, I could choose two, otherwise I could choose no. So for now I'm just going to say yes to it because I'm not going to create a new project every now and then in the same solution. So let it be yes for now. All right. So I have got .NET 11 installed on my machine. So it has taken up .NET 11. Okay. So now it wants to install this. Okay. So now it is picking up .NET 10. Okay. So this command over here was actually to list the SDKs available on my machine, and it figured out I have got 11 preview 2 and 10 SDK version. So now it is creating a new .NET Web API to do app for the .NET 10 framework. Okay, so I'm going to say yes to it. And now mostly it will create the web API project. So now it is asking me for another bash command that it wants to execute, and that is .NET add package. And this is the package that it is trying to add. So I'm going to say yes to it. Okay, so now it wants to create a new folder. So I'm going to say yes and always allow access to to-do app, directory to-do app from this project. That is the second option. I'm going to say yes. Okay, so now it has finally started adding code. Now it is asking that it wants to run the bash command, that is the .NET build. So I'm going to say yes forever, yes for all future requirements. All right, so the project is built, and here is what was created. Project's name is to do app. This is the model, to do status, and all these things were done. And this is my to do app listed over here. Now let's ask it to run it first of all. I know that this is just an API project and we have not even added Swashbuckle or Swagger kind of things. But anyhow, we shall be able to still hit the URL and maybe just do a get and we should get an empty response, but at least it should be 200, right? So let's just ask it to run this app. So it says .NET run is the command that it is going to execute. I'm going to say yes. So now it should figure out what is the startup project and then again some question. Okay. All right. So now it has given me a bash command which is actually doing a post request to this endpoint. So it is going to create some resource for me. I'm going to say yes to it and let's see if it is actually able to do it. Why it is using Python. Let's do yes again. I think it did a get command somewhere. App is running and working on this. Created a test to do and the get endpoints returns it successfully. All CRUD operations are live and ready to use. So it not just built a web app for me, it also tested it. Not a very thorough testing, but yes, a get and post requests were tested. So by the way, let's just hit this URL over here and let us see if we are able to get anything out of it. Okay, so we need a get URL. And yes, we get our first or we get two of the to-dos that were created. Nice. All right. So now every time we start a new session, Claude knows nothing about the project, the NuGet packages we are using, the folder structure we are using, and most importantly, how we write code. That's where the init command comes in. Now, if I type init, this is going to initialize a new Claude.md file with the code-based documentation. I'm going to hit enter to it. Now, this is reading some files and based on those reads that it is doing, it is going to create an architecture file or the entire structure of my application. So now it has created this Claude.md. And if we look at this place over here, we would see that it has got all the things that we have in our project right now. So it has got the architecture, which tells that it is a ASP.NET Core minimal API to-do application that uses EF core with in-memory database. Now we have got a program.cs and then there are a few key design decisions that are present in this project. All right. So now next time when we start a new session with Claude, we won't have to really tell everything about our code to the Claude. Okay, so now let us try to improve this project, and in the process of doing that, we will see what changes we are doing and how Claude.md is getting updated of the recent or of the latest architecture. All right, so let me open my program.cs and we would see that it has got a few endpoints, one get and a post endpoint also, which takes in this kind of request. And as of now, we are not really having any Fluent validation to check if this model that we are receiving is validated. So let's use some Fluent validation and let's try to add validators for these models. So I'm going to ask Claude to do this for me. Now I'm not making a wild guess or I'm not letting Claude take over how the validation has to be done. I'm asking it, telling it rather to use a Fluent validation NuGet package to add validation for the post and update request. So let's hit enter and let's see what it comes up with. Now it is saying that it wants to run a bash command to add the Fluent validation package. If I say yes, it is going to do it this time. But if I say yes and don't ask again for .NET add, then every time we ask it to add a new NuGet package, it is just going to run it and without asking us. So in order to save some time, I'm going to say yes to all of these requests. So now it has added this create to do request validator. Some 15 more lines are there. And if you look over here at program.cs, it is saying that it is going to validate it this way. Cool. The same it is going to do for the put request. But now it built it and it failed for some reason. Okay, so it failed because a task was already running. Now I think it has scaled that task. The process with PID has been terminated and it's going to run or build the app again, but then again has failed with exit code. So we see that how it is trying to recover from its own failure. Now let's try to build it ourselves using the bash. So I'm going to enter the bash mode. As soon as I put the exclamation mark, you see the color has changed and it has come to bash mode. I'm going to say .NET build, and I think it has built it just fine. Now we need to update the Claude.md for the validators that we have added. So I'm going to say update Claude.md with the new architectural changes. So now if we go back to our Claude.md, we will see that it has added this validators here over here on line number 20. So it has added that it is using Fluent validation for validating the request DTOs. Registered via the add validators from assembly program, assembly scanning. Okay, so if we go back to our program, we should somewhere see that it is adding the validators from the assembly, which contains the program class. Cool. So this is what we wanted, right? And it has also updated the Claude.md with the new validation schema or the new validators that we have added. All right, so now let's look at another feature of Claude Code called the plan mode. Now, over here, I'm still in the normal mode, but if I do a shift tab, you would see that I have come to this accept edits mode. And if I do it on again, if I press the shift tab again, I'm now in the plan mode. So now let's try, let's try to ask it to plan a new feature for us. All right. So I'm going to ask it to create a new custom middleware for my application that is going to add this header called AI agent and add a value to it called the Claude code. Okay. So I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to hit enter. Now it has updated the plan, and if you want to look at the plan, we can also do that. Anyhow, it has already given us the plan. So the plan is that AI agent response header middleware. Now it is going to create this middleware folder, AI agent header middleware. Then this is the kind of code that it is going to write, invoke async context.response, and it will add this. And then it is going to register the middleware over here. And then if files to modify are these penny verification, we can actually verify this using this. Claude has written up a plan and it is ready to execute. Would you like to proceed? Now again, we have got three options. We can either just do a yes and we will land into this auto accept edits. Yes, manually approve edits and tell Claude what to change. Or we could tell it ourselves what changes to be want. However, I'm just going to do yes to it and let the magic happen. And now it has come to this, you see this blue box over here, which is actually talking or which is actually representing the current plan that is in execution. Okay, so now it has added it. And if you open this file, you would see this that it has got a invoke async method and it is adding this header into the response and then coming to the next middleware in the pipeline. So plan mode is another very strong, very helpful feature of Claude Code. Now, once we've added the new middleware, let's update our Claude.md architecture. And so it has now added this middleware thing over here, and it has also told us, or it has also mentioned that it adds this AI agent header with this value to every response. And middleware is registered in program.cs via this app.use middleware code. Cool, pretty straightforward, but this is what makes Claude Code super powerful and useful. Now let's try to understand how we can manage context or manage memory for our application when we are building using Claude Code. So for that, let's just type this command called /context, and now we get how much of the context has been used up. So for this model, Claude Opus 4.6, we have used roughly about 23,000 of tokens out of 200,000 tokens. So at the time of this recording, with the Pro mode, we are getting some 200,000 tokens, which is, and now for this application, for this context that we are in, we have used around 11%. Now, if we try to look at the breakdown, we'll understand that roughly 3.1% is being used up by the system prompt. Now, what are system prompts? So all those writes command and the read command that it has to run, those are included in the system prompt. So this write tool that it called, that was one of the system prompt. Now system tools is around 4.4%. Then there are skills. We'll talk about that later, which has again used up some 555 tokens. And then the messages. So all the messages that we have sent and all the responses that we have received, those have taken around 7.6 thousand or 7.6 thousand token, that is around 4%. Now, the amount of free space or the free space in the context is 71.9, that is 72%. And then there are MCP tools that we have used. Okay, so for now, we have not really used anything, but these two are available. Now, we are going to talk about MCP in later videos and not in this one. And also, there are several skills, but we have not really used any. Again, we are going to talk about them later in the video or in other videos rather. Cool. So now, whenever you are working with some unrelated task, we wouldn't really want to carry this much of context because most of this context is from our previous task that we have done. All right. So in order to do that, we could actually clear up the context using the clear command. But before that, there is another command called compact. Now, if I choose that and hit enter, let it do its thing, and then we are going to run the context again. Just make a note that we are using 11% of context right now. All right. So now it has done the compact thing. And now let's look at the context again. And now if you see that from 11%, it has come down to 9%. Okay. So we have lost that previous context over here. But overall, it has now reduced the context usage from 11 to 9%. So now if you have used even a bigger context, you have used even bigger plans, you will see when you run compact, you would actually see a very much huge of a difference. Okay. So now whenever you are working along a related task and your context window is about to get full, you would, instead of clearing the context, you would do a compact. Okay. So now what happens when the context window is full? So when the context window is full, Claude starts to hallucinate. It will start forgetting things and generate lower quality responses. So that is the reason we would want to compact the context, or we would want the context to be clear. So now let's also try and see to what happens if we clear the context. And now it says no context, no content. So now if I run context, I would still not see 0, but it will be way lesser. So yeah, it is 8% now. So we were at 11%, then we came to 9%, and then now we are at 8%, because you see the messages are nearly 0 now. Okay. So whenever we are working on an unrelated task, you do not want the context to be carried over. We would essentially clear the context. All right, so the next topic is a little important, and this is about the cost. So how can we manage cost for our Claude code? So now there are two commands that we could run. One is cost, which is if we are using an API based model, you could use this. But because I'm not using API based, I'm on a subscription model. So I'm going to use this command called usage, and I'm going to hit enter. And now look, we have got this that for the current session, I've got 15% used, and for the current week, it is just 5% used. All right. So based on your subscription, you will have a different model, and you might just see it filling fast. Now, how can we manage this cost? Now, previously we learned about managing the context. So every time you make a request or you ask the LLM to give you a response, what all things we are going to send along with it? So we are going to send it the system prompt, the system tools, and the Claude.md file, right? So these three things will be going every time whenever you are prompting the model. So it's very important to keep your Claude.md file as lean as possible. Just remove the outdated stuff from it so that you are not sending a bigger Claude.md, because a bigger Claude.md would mean a bigger number of tokens. All right. So whenever working with unrelated tasks, just ensure that you are not really sending the entire context. Clear your context and then send it. Or if you are using or if you're working on a related task, then try to compact the context so that you would end up in lesser limit hits. Okay. All right. So that's a wrap on this video. Now, I want to be honest with you. What we covered today is genuinely just the surface of Claude Code. There's a lot more to this tool: multi agent workflows, custom slash commands, deeper MCP integrations, working with large existing code bases, skills, and then Claude co work. And we haven't even touched any of that yet. But here's what I want you to take away from this video: you now have a real foundation. You understand how Claude Code thinks, how to give it the right context, how to use plan mode before making big changes, how to manage your sessions, and how to stay in control of the process. That's not nothing. That's actually the hard part that most people skip. The developers who struggle with these tools aren't struggling because the tool is bad. They are struggling because they jump straight into using it without building this foundation first. And you haven't done that. As we go deeper in the next videos, and we'll go deeper, you will be building on something solid. If this video was useful to you, subscribe to the channel because the next video in this series are going to go significantly further. We are going to cover topics that will genuinely change how you build software as a .NET developer. And if you have questions, drop them in the comments. I read every single one of them. And I'll see you in the next one.